To the uninitiated observer, a keyboard is an innocuous utilitarian slab of plastic, much like a stapler or a spatula, designed for the unglamorous drudgery of data entry. Most people view these as simple tools to be replaced only after a catastrophic coffee spill. We, the self-proclaimed enthusiasts, have evolved past such logic, transforming our input devices into sacred repositories for our collective anxieties and vessels for our dwindling disposable income. We look with genuine pity at the membrane user, that innocent soul who's perfectly satisfied with the mushy office peripheral provided by their IT department. While they type in blissful silence, we treat these objects as totems where the acoustic signature of a stabilizer wire hitting plastic is scrutinized more closely than our own interpersonal relationships. We've convinced ourselves that spending the equivalent of a used vehicle on a device to type emails is a rational necessity for productivity. Our community is driven by the delusion that a heavier brass weight will somehow fill the spiritual bankruptcy in our souls. We're the architects of our own savings vaporization, desperately trying to control the world by adjusting the actuation force of a switch by 5 grams. We spend $600 to type slightly louder than our coworkers, even if we're too afraid to touch the keys, lest we shine the expensive plastic. The descent begins with typing test videos, a genre of ASMR where disembodied hands handle religious artifacts with high-fidelity microphones. We watch these high priests like Teha types or Glarses and suddenly feel an acute sense of inadequacy looking down at our mushy, silent desks. We hear the siren song of Thock, that elusive, deep, bass-heavy sound that we believe will transform our cubicle into a symphony hall. Contrary to corporate marketing gaslighting, better sound profile won't make your data entry any less soul-crushing. We buy into the foundational lie that our lack of professional fulfillment isn't due to our jobs, but rather the quality of our keystrokes. We start with a gaming keyboard festooned with RGB lights, unaware that we've just bought a ticket to a carnival where the rides cost $500 and the lines last 2 years. The influencer ecosystem creates a feedback loop where yesterday's Endgame build is today's obsolete trash because of a new leaf spring mounting style. The unholy truth is that Endgame is just a theological mirage designed to keep us on a luxury-priced trash heap of constant modification. We begin to see our tools as collections of deficiencies, leading us to believe that a $600 investment is the only way to make our Tuesday morning spreadsheets sound creamy. We're just throwing our paycheck into an industrial-grade furnace to hear a slightly different pitch while we're being ignored by our boss. Our decline follows 4 stages, starting with stage 1, the gamer phase, defined by mainstream boards and cyberpunk vomit lighting. In this absolute wreckage of a subculture, we think a response time of 1 millisecond actually makes us better at video games. We're just RGB-obsessed amateurs blinking in primary colors, waiting for the real shame to start. We evolve into stage 2, the tinkerer, feeling embarrassment over stabilizer rattle while stuffing packing foam into cases like alchemy wizards. This is the hilariously tragic hardware flex, where we spend hundreds on tools just to make a cheap board sound marginally less hollow. We're domesticating garbage and calling it craft. Stage 3 is the group buy gambler, paying today for keycaps that might exist in 18 months. The deranged reality is we've become unsecured creditors to strangers in Shenzhen. We track our fiscal event in the spreadsheet, monitoring costs with a 36-cent precision, while the total rivals a mortgage payment. At stage 4, the terminal hoarder, we spend $500 on a dirty IBM Model M because the plastic aged correctly. Since we're already neck-deep in this disaster, we're paying for technology that was obsolete in 1995. We climb this hierarchy of waste only to realize we're still just typing emails on a $1,300 slab of aluminum just to feel something. Our community uses synesthetic language to describe hard plastic interactions, borrowing terms from the culinary and tactile domains. We describe switches as creamy, a disturbing dairy adjective that should probably trigger a hobbyist brain rot. In the real, unmitigated world, describing the texture of a computer button like it's a bowl of carbonara is a cry for help. We obsess over north-facing versus south-facing LEDs, which is a theological dispute about light bulbs rubbing against specific shapes of German plastic. This is a digital ego-flexing contest that exists only because we refuse to buy keycaps that don't chafe against the switch housing. If you pull your head out of your delusion for a second, you'd realize we're demanding an entire industry redesign circuit boards just to accommodate our aesthetic pickiness. We're suffering from stabilizer tick, where a tiny rattle on the spacebar forces us to tear apart the entire build to apply medical band-aids to a wire. This creates an expensive, cursed paperweight, where a half-millimeter vibration turns a grown adult into a neurotic mess. We spend 8 hours manually applying grease to internal components, a process we call meditative only because we have a pathological commitment. Franken switches require us to buy 3 sets of expensive switches just to destroy them and create one super switch. It's the height of material waste and financial napalm. We chase Thock, onomatopoeia, for a $5 rubber mallet hitting a table, but we price it like literal gold. We use this impenetrable lexicon to signal status to each other, while outsiders just hear us arguing about the marbly sound of packing material. The mechanical keyboard hobby is not a solitary vice. It radiates outward as domestic noise pollution. We're basically paying a premium to turn our homes into industrial construction zones for our suffering families. We deal with the spousal ick, where our significant others describe our $600 board as sounding like arrhythmic duck farts. We prioritize the wife acceptance factor, a metric discussed with the gravity of a credit score. Despite what these status-obsessed weirdos tell you, no amount of gasket mounting will save your relationship when you're clicking at 2 a.m. We engage in price obfuscation, telling partners we got parts on sale, instead of admitting the stabilizers cost more than a nice dinner. This is a for spec sheet cultists that forces us into package smuggling, hiding deliveries in spare tire compartments to avoid explaining a third box from KBD fans. The garbage tier part of it is that we're shredding our paycheck on my 401k while lying like we're moving contraband. Explaining you spent rent money on a TGR Alice is a potent lonely maker. Matching keyboards are just a version of a promise ring masking a shared madness. We use the shoes argument for justification, even though shoes actually transport you somewhere, while our boards keep us stationary in a chair. We're just a catastrophic disaster paying for the privilege of sitting still. The keyboard community is fractured by schisms fought with the ferocity of crusades, despite the stakes being vanishingly low. In this forsaken of a hobby, we've divided into factions that hate each other over the texture of a button. We take sides in the switch wars, where linear zealots view a tactile bump as scratchy interference, while everyone shuns the clicky outcasts. We engage in the clone wars, a moral battle between GMK purists and AliExpress pragmatists who refuse to wait 2 years for plastic. Listen here, you uncultured membrane user. We pay $150 for keycap sets only to receive warped space bars after a 24-month wait. This is pure, unadulterated marketing theological fan fiction we swallow just to feel like refined aristocracy. We buy Alice layouts claiming they save our wrists, while they're actually aesthetic lies that make us unable to use a normal computer. We're getting financially fleeced by the MSRP on components like the Holy Panda Switch, driving prices to levels that suggest we've lost touch with reality. The vintage curmudgeon elitists think any Switch made after 1990 is scratchy linear trash, yet we continue to fight these holy wars just to feel order, even if it only applies to a spacebar. The mattress argument is our favorite defense, claiming that if you type 8 hours a day, you deserve a $1,000 board to prevent boredom. If you're big enough, pretentious hack to believe the marketing, you'll convince yourself that a rectangle of aluminum is essential medical equipment. While a premium mattress actually saves your back, this technological garbage doesn't prevent carpal tunnel any better than a cheap ergonomic plastic board. We utilize relativist coping to argue that since we're not into racing cars, our monthly switch habit is practically frugal. We tell ourselves we're saving money by not owning a boat, ignoring that a car actually transports you, while this keyboard keeps us stationary in a chair. We're basically getting absolutely pillaged by the retail price of customized plastic. We fall for the investment delusion, claiming that GMK sets hold their value like plastic assets. We're parking our money in speculative resin, behaving like Beanie Baby collectors while our credit card interest rates climb. This is how we end up liquidating our future with a keycap puller. Financial coping is the term we use for the elaborate moral gymnastics we use to justify another $400 metal rectangle. If you're dense enough to care about the sound of a spacebar, you'll find a way to make any debt sound like a smart move. We're just inhaling the fumes of our denial. Our tribe is divided into distinct avatars, like the hype beast who buys keyboards solely to take photos of them next to succulent plants. This is a woefully marketing stunt, where we treat aluminum like fine art, while our actual typing skills remain mediocre. We're basically paying $2,000 on the resale market for boards we never intend to use for work. The ergo weirdo uses a keyboard that looks like a medical device for a cyberpunk villain and requires complex layers for every basic function.
If you had two brain cells to rub together, you'd see that they've traded their soul for a split ortholinear nightmare. They're the keyboard-obsessed ghouls who claim to be efficient while their desks look like laboratories for a mad scientist. We also have the vintage curmudgeon scouring thrift stores for dirty old keyboards just to clean them with retro bright chemicals. These trolls think yellowed plastic from the 80s is the peak of human achievement. Finally, the artisan gamblers pay $100 for a single dragon keycap. This overpriced piece of marketing debris makes the user look like a complete single-input thinker. Meanwhile, the Franken-switcher destroys 3 switch sets just to create one super switch. It's an operational catastrophe of a transaction that only produces value in a museum that no one visits.
Rock bottom is the lifted pad, where we ruin a $300 PCB by ripping the copper contact off during the 10th switch swap. In this pathetic excuse for a subculture, we've traded sanity for a soldering iron, only to end up with a shiny pile of worthless technical sorcery. We experience the ick of living with a broken enter key for years because we're too ashamed to admit we lobotomize the hardware. We suffer the bag lube disaster, where trying to save 30 minutes leaves us with an oily, tangled mess of springs. Our keyboards sound wet, and our backs are killing us from painting 1mm stems with a tiny brush. Because the universe loves a cosmic slap in the face, we look at shelves of 10 keyboards and realize they are just dust-gathering monuments to fleeting dopamine. The endgame realization hits when you buy a $1,000 Keycult and it just feels fine. We are the Ouroboros, the snake eating its own tail, forever building the next board to fix the flaws of the last. We return to Reddit for the next group buy, because this hobby was always a $600 distraction from the void.